Picture this. It's a spring day in 1980. A man sits alone at his desk in a modest house in San Antonio, Texas. He's 60 years old, a retired banker, and a decorated air ace from the Second World War. In front of him is a typewriter and a blank sheet of paper. For most people, writing a letter is an ordinary act. For Jack Ilfrey, it may be the bravest thing he's ever done. He isn't about to confess a crime or reveal a military secret. It's not even about the war. It's about himself. For 40 years, Jack Ilfrey has lived with a story he believed could never be told. To the outside world, he's everything America admires. A decorated war hero, a fearless combat pilot, a man who survived some of the most dangerous aerial missions of the Second World War. Military historians remember him as one of the more colourful characters of America's air war. They know Jack Ilfrey, the hero. They do not know Jack Ilfrey, the man. Today, we would describe Jack as a gay man, although he almost certainly never used those words to describe himself. During the war, and for decades afterward, that part of his life remained hidden, even from many of the people who knew him best. It's tempting to imagine that surviving combat must have made everything else in life seem easy. But courage isn't always measured in the same way. Jack flew hundreds of hours through anti-aircraft fire and fighter attacks. He escaped from occupied France. He cheated death so many times, his ground crew named his plane the Texas Terror. Yet none of those experiences prepared him to write the letter he knew he had to write. So let me explain who he was writing to. He wasn't writing to a fellow pilot or a military historian or a member of his family. He was writing to a novelist. Christopher Case had recently published Wingmen, the story of the love between two American fighter pilots during the Second World War. When Jack read it, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in his life, he recognized himself in someone else's story. The letter Jack eventually sent to Case revealed that much of the novel echoed his own experiences during and after the war. It also revealed something even more profound: Jack's lifelong regret at feeling unable to tell the truth about the men he had loved. Case was honoured that Jack had shared his confidence and agreed to keep his secret while Jack was alive. The truth only emerged after Jack's death, quietly transforming the way we understand one of America's most remarkable fighter pilots. So who was Jack Ilfrey? How did a fresh-faced young man from Texas become one of the most celebrated fighter aces of the Second World War? And what happened during those extraordinary years that left him unable to speak openly about his own life? And why did a single novel finally succeed where decades of silence had not? To answer these questions, we have to travel back to a very different America. An America where young men learned early which parts of themselves could be shown to the world and which parts had to remain hidden. Jack Milton Ilfrey was born in Houston, Texas, on July 31, 1920. America was changing almost faster than anyone could imagine. The automobile was transforming everyday life, cities were growing, and the economy was booming, almost out of control. The world was embracing modernity, but America had one foot firmly planted in the previous century. Many people still remembered a time when horsepower was measured by hooves, and powered flight was thought impossible. Prohibition divided public opinion, and segregation was the natural order of things that few people questioned. Nothing about Jack's childhood attracts attention. He lived on a quiet suburban street, attended Sydney Lanier Junior High, and graduated from the Lamar Senior School in 1938. He wasn't a straight A student, but you'd never call him a rebellious teenager. He enjoyed his parents' trust and their company. As a boy, he delivered newspapers before and after school, and later landed a plum job at the Henk and Pilot grocery store for the princely wage of 25 cents per hour. Don't scoff, that was enough to fill the gas tank and take a girl out on a date. Now, dating in the 1930s was a whole different ballgame for young Americans. In fact, the very idea of being a teenager was only just starting to catch on. Dating for Jack's generation was more for entertainment than a pathway to marriage. In the 1930s, a young person's life revolved around drive-in diners, drugstores, and movie theatres, not social media apps. And, of course, cars. Anyone who had obliging parents and the cash to fill the tank could drive a car in Texas in 1935. No license required. Was it a great time to be a teenager? Not really. There was the tricky subject of sex, or more precisely, the lack of it. Young people were expected to save their virginity until they married, and marriage was happening at a much later age due to the Great Depression. Masturbation was discouraged, and homosexuality was absolutely taboo. And you thought teenagers have it tough these days. The unintended consequence of this moral code? Many boys had their first sexual experiences with each other instead of the opposite sex. An uncomfortable fact that Professor Kinsey confirmed with his groundbreaking research in the 1940s. America was horrified by Kinsey's revelations, but Jack's generation, especially the boys, knew how to abide by the unwritten code when it came to sex with each other. Some parts of your life were best kept private. We don't know how Jack came to understand that he was attracted to other boys. There are no diary entries or personal reflections to guide us. Like so much of his private life, those answers have been lost to history. What we do know is that America in the 1930s offered little encouragement to anyone who didn't conform to society's expectations. Marriage, family, and respectability were seen as the natural path through life. Anyone who fell outside those expectations risked misunderstanding, ridicule, or worse. For many men, the safest response was silence. Jack became very good at silence. Friends knew him as cheerful, confident, and outgoing. His easy smile would one day earn him the nickname Happy Jack. Whether that cheerful public image concealed a more complicated private life is something we can only guess. But later events suggest he had already become skilled at separating the man the world expected him to be from the man he knew himself to be. It was a habit that would become second nature. Today we call it masking. Then it was called survival. In the fall of 1938, Jack enrolled at Texas A&M University and joined the A Troop Cavalry. $50 a semester for fees and $30 a month room and board. He surprised his classmates by revealing he was an accomplished horseman he soon established a reputation for being a young man not to be dismissed lightly. But the cavalry was only a stepping stone towards his true ambition. In the fall of 1939, the federal government sponsored the first civilian pilot training program at Texas A&M, and Jack jumped at the chance to be one of the first recruits to the new program. It's impossible to know exactly what inspired him to become a pilot. Perhaps it was the examples of pioneers like Charles Lindbergh. Perhaps it was simply the irresistible attraction that flying held for so many young Americans in the years between the wars. Whatever the reason, aviation captured Jack's imagination. The aircraft of the late 1930s were improving almost year by year. More powerful engines, stronger airframes, and better instruments were opening possibilities that had seemed unimaginable only a decade earlier. To ambitious young men, it was an exciting time to learn to fly. He earned his civilian pilot license remarkably quickly, just 35 hours of flight time. His mother was his first passenger. Within weeks of earning his civilian license, he transferred to the University of Houston's Advanced Training Program. He was now flying the latest Fairchild PT-19 training planes, top speed 130 miles an hour, but no match for the speed with which Jack Ilfrey was working his way towards his goal of joining the US Army Air Corps. Jack's dream came true in March 1941, when he received a letter instructing him to report to Ryan Field, Helmet, California, for cadet training. His progression from rookie civilian pilot to US Army Air Corps cadet was rapid. It took less than a year for Cadet Ilfrey to be appointed Second Lieutenant Jack Ilfrey, US Army Air Force. Yes, he was a natural in the cockpit, but his success also owed a lot to him taking to military life like a duck to water. The discipline and regimentation suited his temperament, and he thrived in the camaraderie of the all-male military environment. The fresh-faced teenager transitioned into a sombre-faced young man almost overnight. War was raging in Europe, but Jack was having the time of his life in 1941. He cut a dashing figure in his Air Force uniform, and he could enjoy all the perks available to a young man with money in his pockets and a city like San Francisco practically on his doorstep, if you handled a car like Jack Ilfrey. He wasn't shy of boasting his 1937 LaSalle was good for 100 miles an hour. Now, the drive from Phoenix to San Francisco took at least 10 hours, even for a low flyer like Jack, and LA and San Diego were much closer to where he was stationed in Arizona. So you have to ask, what was the attraction of San Francisco? Well, that's not a difficult question to answer. In the 1940s, as it is today, San Francisco was a magnet to young men who were eager to explore experiences that Middle America was trying its best to deny even existed. San Francisco had earned its reputation as Sodom by the Sea through the law of unintended consequences. Over time, the Gold Rush, the Presidio military base, the Treasure Island Naval Base, and the strategic location of its world-famous harbour all ensured the Golden City attracted a steady stream of young, single men with money in their pockets and time to kill. You couldn't design a better location for a gay mecca if you tried to on purpose.